Psalm 78, verses 36 to 39 says, "But they deceived him with their mouth and lied to him with their tongue, for their heart was not steadfast toward him, nor were they faithful in his covenant. But he, being compassionate, forgave their iniquity, and did not destroy them, as he often restrained himself and his anger, and did not arouse his wrath. Thus he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes and does not return." Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 6-month reading plan through the book of Psalms, today's reading is Psalm 78, verses 28 through 40, and I encourage you to read that section. Well, I recently read an article where the author was complaining that a minister who holds Bible studies for senators and congressmen and women and the cabinet and the president was teaching that the coronavirus was a result of God's judgment of the sin of the U.S. I went to his ministry's website and discovered that the referenced article did indeed intimate that this pandemic was a result of judgment, but not in the way the online newspaper purported it to be. God certainly does judge his people for sin, but this pandemic we're currently experiencing is not a direct judgment, but rather is a result of having a fallen world. God judged this world when Adam and Eve sinned. The result of that judgment still remains. And while God certainly does and can individually judge sin, we do not see that except for a few references in Scripture where God judges the entire world for sin. The flood was one such judgment, and the tribulation seems to be another. Now, we're not experiencing the tribulation. And a cursory look at those references shows that an immediate judgment, not a slow-moving pandemic in which only it kills a very small percentage of those who are infected, like the coronavirus. We do a disservice to the Scriptures when we assign something to God which the Bible does not ascribe. Do we sin? Yes. Does God judge us? Yes. Does he regularly judge the entire world, nations, in the same way? Very rarely, but it does happen. So let's be clear. This pandemic is a result of a fallen world. If it is a naturally occurring virus, then there is no direct judgment of God. The virus was created in that world, and it would not necessarily be indicative of a judgment except as a result of sin. The Israelites have had a distinct relationship with God, Romans 2 through 5, and chapters 9 through 11 as well, and God will judge them as a nation. We as a country do not have that kind of relationship with God. And while our nation could be judged, let's not jump to a conclusion. A better reaction would be to start and continue to live as Christian disciples and show the world by example how we live. That type of living example will bring people to Christ. And if you would like a PDF copy of this entire reading plan, please send an email to phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.